Welcome everyone to the August 24 Tableau Public Tug. We're here to answer the questions. Why did you do that? How did you do that? And most importantly, how did you make it look so good? So, share. Today we are here to help two 2024 Vizzie winners celebrate their awards. Shreya Arya won the Best Designer Vizzie, and Pulley won I Never Knew You Could Do That in Tableau Vizzie. We'll also be speaking with Tableau Public featured author Givler, so stick around. Today's hosts are Preethi Lodha and Priyanka Debal. They're both Tableau Public ambassadors, and myself, I'm Eric Howard. I'm a Tableau Users Group ambassador. Preethi is a true global citizen. She's a multilingual visitor and has lived on 3 continents, enriching her work with a diverse perspective. Her American International Studies Viz has over 1 million views on Tableau Public. And she firmly believes that diversity is not merely a checkbox, but a catalyst for positive change. Thank you for hosting today, Preethi.
Thank you for including me, Eric.
Priyanka Debal is a business intelligence technical lead at UserReady. She is a Tableau Public ambassador, a Tableau Public featured author, and has received 5 Viz of the Days on Tableau Public. With over 8+ years of experience, she leverages her experience in Tableau, Alteryx, and cloud analytics to create compelling vizes and dashboards that enable data-driven insights and decisions. Thanks for hosting today, Priyanka. All right, here's our rough timeline for today. We're going to start off with Ray, and in between Shreya and Ant, we're going to have a quick swag drawing. It's a stacked agenda, so let's get started with Ray. Givler is a dedicated member of the Tableau Public Data Fam. He regularly posts tips, tricks, and tutorials on how to master Tableau to his Tableau Public profile. When he's not on Tableau Public, he's creating professional self-service analytics at Helion, a division of Highmark, one of the largest blended healthcare organizations in the US. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you for that introduction, Eric.
You're welcome. So how and when did you get started in Tableau?
I started with Tableau about 8 years ago in my prior internal position at the company, but early on, I really didn't use it day to day. There were some long stretches, sometimes like months at a time, where I had dry spells and was doing more ETL type work. But for the last 4 years, since I've been in the Helion division, I've been using it pretty much on a daily basis professionally.
Okay. Was there a specific background that led you to using Tableau, or a reason they threw you into Tableau, or did you just find it on your own?
Yeah, well, way back, my degree is in computer science, and I was somewhat adept at coding back in the day. And then I went through a long period of being a stay-at-home dad, and then re-entered the workforce about 11 years ago as a business analyst. And I still knew a little SQL then, and that kind of led me into getting another internal position in reporting, and then another position opened up in analytics, which I thought I wanted to do. So I took that, and I really, to be honest, hadn't even heard of Tableau at that point. The hiring manager said he thought I would like it. So I went ahead and took that position. And the funny thing is, like, sometimes people ask me online, like, what made you choose Tableau? And really, like, I didn't choose it at all. I just kind of fell into it.
It was what we had at our workplace, so I started using it. Yeah.
Yep.
For me, I was the SQL guy, and our analyst left, so I got to start doing her job too with Tableau. So yeah, I loved it. So when did you begin publishing to Tableau Public?
I actually looked this up for my oldest Viz on Tableau Public. I can tell you the exact date, December 22nd, 2017. My first Viz was about dog bites in Pennsylvania. So I got some public data that's out there and made a simple little graph on that, and that started it all.
Cool. Well, it just takes one small step to get you going. How long have you been trying to get a Viz of the day? And I should say, you don't have a Viz of the day, correct?
Correct. I do not have a visit a day, and you may have seen Adrian Zenovi's comment in there. Visit the Ray is my hashtag on LinkedIn. So like, all my visits get visit the Ray. None have gotten visit the day.
Okay.
So actively, somewhat trying to do it. Maybe since 2022 with the Iron Viz, I kind of with my Star Wars quote Iron Viz entry, kind of bumped up my Tableau Public game as far as level of effort and aesthetics and that sort of stuff.
Okay. Well, we all can't be as blessed as Shreya. I think she got Viz of the day like right off the bat, and it's like,
yeah, that's nice. Maybe someday.
Really blessed and talented. But do you have a favorite Tableau project that you've been working on?
Wow. So of my stuff on Tableau Public, probably my favorite one from an analytics standpoint is Benchmarker. So I encourage people to take a look at that because it shows you how to do two subsets of a single data set at the same time, a data source, I should say, by using sets. So that's kind of interesting. Like aesthetically, my favorite one is Iron Viz entry from 2024, Are We Alone? So that's out there. Another community project, I have one that's kind of fun from this year's Makeover Monday, Animal Edibility. Some people got a kick out of that. You might want to check that out.
Yeah.
And
those
are the big ones.
Yeah. Well, I should point out that you don't blog, but you do post a lot of how-tos in your Tableau Public Vizzies. So they're not just Vizzies, they're also tutorials, correct?
Correct. On especially more recently. So there's one on radial charts too, and that has several tabs of how-to. The Benchmarker has a how-to. I believe I have a how-to tab on the Super Slicer. So that has dynamic hierarchies and a table. That might be another one people want to check out.
Okay. Yeah, I might need to check that out. My new boss wants to do some hierarchy stuff. So what is your favorite Tableau shortcut tip or trick?
Yeah, I have trouble prioritizing, so I'm going to throw a few out here. One from a workflow standpoint is just duplicate your sheet before you try a new idea so that you don't destroy the original. And that ties in with the sheet swap. So when you're in the dashboard mode, if you select a sheet on the dashboard and then hover over the sheets on the left, you can swap sheets out. So that's a big one. Dragging long lists, if you have a lot of pills and rows or columns or measure values, you can drag that shelf or card around and make it a vertical list. And sometimes if there's a lot of them, that's easier to work with. So a lot of people don't know that one. On a lot of lists in Tableau, you can use Control and Shift click to save time, select a whole bunch of things and do operations on multiple items. And lastly, I'd throw out double clicking an object handle. When you're using containers in a dashboard, double clicking an object will select the parent container, and double clicking that will select its parent container and so forth. And that can help you, move things around a little more easily.
Okay. Well, you're great at sharing your tips and tricks on Tableau, but what's your favorite training resource for learning a new feature such in Tableau?
Yeah, I actually have this all written out on the featured content of my LinkedIn profile. So if you go out there and check that out, I have an article called How I Learned Tableau. So there's lots of links to lots of resources. My favorite blog is probably everyone's favorite blog, which is the Flurledge Twins. I get a lot of stuff from that. So that's the top one I would think of. YouTube, I check out a lot of people's stuff, and these are like kind of common names out there. Andy Kriebel stuff, Jeff Schaefer has videos out there. Tableau Tim, I was just looking at interview he had with Ravi Mistry this week, in fact. SQL Bell, Donabelle Santos has great videos out there. And Eric Parker and Oliver Lindley and One Number. Those are some of the ones I check out. Also past conference videos, things like that.
Well, final question. What is a current feature of Tableau that you want to learn more about?
The things I'm looking into, shared dimensions are new. I want to get a handle on those and really understand how to leverage them. Also, I'd say we don't have Tableau extensions at work, and I haven't really played with them that much, only a little bit. So I want to see what I can do Tableau public-wise with those.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate all your insights. We're going to turn it over to Parithi and Shreya and celebrate her Vizzie. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That's a great handover. And I do want to check with Ray one of these days. How can we get Viz of the Day awarded? Are they given only to the Rays, or we can even participate and get one of those?
Well, I will recommend to everybody, if you see a Viz on Tableau Public, there is an icon where you can nominate things for Viz of the Day. So that helps. Go out there and push things forward so that they get recognized.
Cool. Okay, I have the exciting bit now. Thank you, Shreya, for joining us. Quick bio on Shreya. Shreya is a Tableau Alteryx consultant at the Information Lab UK, and she's also the member of the Data School DES 39 cohort. She started her Tableau journey in September 2022. It's amazing. It's under 2 years, and you are creating such gorgeous content. Shreya has a passion for creative design. She enjoys transforming data into clear, visually engaging insights, for which she has received 8 Viz of the Days on Tableau Public. At this year's Tableau Community Vizzie Award, where the Tableau Public group also won a Vizzie, Shreya won her Vizzie for the Kelly Martin Best Designer Award for the Viz that she's going to share with us, walk us through the background of it, called Kyoto, Japan Cherry Blossom Seasonality. So thank you, Shreya, for joining us. I'm excited to hear from you of how did you build this, what was the process like, and the tips and tricks that you could give us. Before I hand it over to Shreya, just a quick housekeeping. If you have any questions that you would like Shreya to answer, please feel free to put them in chat, or we have the Q&A feature, which we will enable shortly. Please feel free to put your questions there. Thank you, everybody. Handing it over to Shreya.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for the lovely intro, Preeti. I'll quickly share my screen and walk you guys through this visualization. Okay, so hi everyone. Thanks for joining in today as I take you behind the scenes of how I created my Kyoto, Japan Cherry Blossom Seasonality Viz. Before we dive into that, I wanted to give a huge thank you to you guys. Even though I wasn't able to attend the Tableau conference in person, winning the Vizzie for Best Designer was still such an incredible and heartwarming experience. And I remember receiving so many lovely and encouraging messages from you all. And it meant a lot for my work to be recognized in this way. And not only that, I was nominated in 8 different categories, which was just as surreal as winning. So I just wanted to give a big thank you to you guys. So thank you, DataFam, for everything, for nominating me, for always being so kind and supportive. And it really means the world, and I hope I can give back and show my support to you guys too. And also a big thank you to the Tableau Public User Group for inviting me back to share my journey and for organizing this session. I also wanted to give a quick introduction to myself so you can get to know me a bit better. Oh, there we go. Hi everyone, my name's Shreya. I'm a Tableau Ultrix consultant at the Information Lab. I'm also part of the Data School UK's DS39 cohort, and I'm currently at placement at Lloyds Banking Group, doing lots of dashboard development. And I'm really lucky to be working alongside so many great minds such as Pulley, who we all know and love, and who will be presenting next. I'm also really grateful to have received some recognitions from the Tableau community, such as becoming a Tableau Public featured author last year, winning 8 Viz of the Days on Tableau Public, and thanks to you guys, receiving the Best Designer Award. I'm also a co-lead for the Tableau community project Back to Viz Basics. So I co-lead alongside Eric Balash and Elisa Davis, and it's really exciting to be able to support new users on their Tableau journeys. And speaking of Tableau journeys, I started mine in September 2022. So I've been using Tableau for around 1 year and 11 months. So next year will be my 2-year anniversary, which is exciting. So a bit about my academic background. Before becoming a consultant and learning Tableau, I was studying for a Master's of Chemistry degree at UEA. And here you can see our beautiful green campus and some of the samples of the plastics I was working with. In my final year, I was working on microplastic research, which is something I'm still very passionate about. And in the picture on the right-hand side, you'll see essentially a filter with some polymer samples on it. And we'd stain these polymers with now red dye, which is a fluorescent dye. And this would allow us to identify which particles are microplastics. And they fluoresce so beautifully. So it's a really visually beautiful project to be working on as well. In my spare time, I also really love being creative. So I love making jewelry, playing with henna and mehndi, crocheting. You can't see the eyes on this dragon, but this is a dragon I made out of clay. I also love watercoloring and playing with different art mediums. And in terms of music, I like playing the guitar and the ukulele. So when it comes to my Tableau Public visualizations, I really love kind of combining that creativity with my analytical side and creating these beautiful visualizations. So my Tableau Public portfolio consists of both business style dashboards and creative visualizations. But even with the business style dashboards, I still like to sprinkle a bit of creativity in everything I do, just because it makes the process more entertaining and fun, and it makes the outcome a lot more satisfying to me. But if you'd like to see some more of my work, you can head to my Tableau Public portfolio and you'll be able to see all the visualizations I create there. So today I wanted to take you behind the scenes of my Kyoto, Japan Cherry Blossom Seasonality Viz. And I wanted to really share a bit about how I found the Viz and how I sourced the data sets, the inspiration behind it, and how you can add or add credit to your visualizations as well. How I created the background, how I created the charts, and what motivated me throughout the process. Oh, and also some motivation for you guys as well. So let's start with a background into the Viz. So the way I stumbled across this beautiful visualization by The Economist was I was going on a data deep dive, so I was trying to source some beautiful data. And when I came across this visualization, I thought it was so beautiful. I really loved the design of it, how clear it was to get the message. And I thought it'd be a great challenge to set for Back to Biz Basics. So I chose this challenge because it seemed like it would make a really creative and beautiful addition to everyone's portfolios, and it'd also be an engaging way for new users to gain familiarity with building scatter plots in Tableau. So whenever Eric, Elisa, and I set these challenges, we're always thinking about how they can help enhance your portfolios and give you a chance to learn and practice new skills. So I already knew I wanted to set this as a challenge. But I love this data set so much, I really wanted to participate as well. So as you can see, I was very much inspired by the original economist visualization. So on the left-hand side, you can see the economist's version of the viz, and on the right-hand side, you can see mine. And you can probably see a lot of parallels, such as the way we've done the month headers on the side, the way we've added that legend at the top, the trend line with the confidence intervals. There's lots of parallels between these two vizzes. And I made sure to credit them at the bottom of my viz. So here you can see I even wrote inspired by The Economist. And this brings me on to my next topic, which is sharing inspiration. So as a data visualization designer, sharing inspiration is so incredibly valuable. And here are 3 reasons why I think it's so powerful to share your inspirations. First up is credibility. So trust is so important in our field, and crediting your sources and inspirations helps you build your reliability and honesty. And I think those are qualities that we all want to be associated with because they're very positive. Oh, the second reason is inspiring others. So by paying it forward and crediting your inspirations, it doesn't mean that, or it doesn't just detract from your own work or your own originality. I think instead it actually showcases your ability to build upon great ideas and make them your own, while also advancing the conversation and enhancing your network. And lastly, we have community. So I think by crediting your inspiration, you're able to support others, and that builds a much more stronger, more positive, and open community. And I think that by crediting other people's work, it also helps encourage collaboration, and it also creates new opportunities for everyone to work together. So there are several ways that you can credit your inspirations. So the first way you can do it is to actually reference them in a tooltip. So here I have 2 examples where I've kind of used an information button that people can hover over and gain insights into, for example, where I got my icons. Oh, God. I think it's moving without me. Let's go back. There we go. So you can see where I got my icons, where I got certain background images from. And this is also a great place to mention inspiration. And I would use this method if you have lots of people you want to credit, just because it removes the clutter from your biz while still crediting their work. The second option, like I did in my cherry blossom viz, is to add a bit of text to the bottom of your viz, and maybe add just like a header or a footer. And the benefit of this is that it's more visible and direct, so people can easily gain that insight. And if you're inspired by a viz on Tableau Public, one thing you can do is you can add the links to their profile or their viz and kind of tie it into your visualization in the detail section. So here I have 2 visualizations that were both inspired by other people's work. So on the left-hand side, I have my hospital ER dashboard, and on the right-hand side, I have a workout Wednesday I completed. And as you can see, I made sure to edit the details for both of these visualizations and put the specific URL links to their visualizations. So this means if anyone wants to see where I got my inspiration, they can easily just click on the inspiration link and view their work. And this is also a great way to support other creators. And the other option is, why not start a vlog? So another great way to share inspiration is by starting a blog. For example, for my call center dashboard, I wrote a blog about all the inspirations I had and how they influenced me. And not only that, blogging can be really useful because it's a great way to document your journey, teach and inspire others, collaborate with others, and create a discussion about your work. So it doesn't have to be expensive to run a blog. There are free platforms like Medium where you can easily start your own blog if that's something you're interested in. Next, I wanted to show you how I created the backgrounds for this visualization. So when it comes to creating backgrounds for my data visualizations, I usually use either Photoshop or Figma. And I wanted to give you both some insights into how these tools work and the differences or similarities between them. So Photoshop is a paid tool. Figma is free to use. Photoshop is raster based, which means essentially how it works is it works pixel by pixel. So if you wanted to resize a photo, for example, if you changed the size a bit too much, you can lose the quality of the image. Whereas with Figma, it's vector-based, so you can resize an image as many times as you want and it won't lose any quality. So Figma is actually really great for building logos, designing websites, or anything branding related. So once again, Figma is actually a great tool for UI, UX design. I've also found it really useful for wireframing. I think you can create some stunning wireframes in Figma. Whereas Photoshop is more for photo/image editing. So having played around with both softwares, I would say that Figma can do almost everything Photoshop can, plus more, especially in the context of designing backgrounds for your data visualizations. And that's because Figma also has tons of plugins that you can play around with. So that being said, why do I still sometimes use Photoshop if Figma's so great? Well, I learned how to use Photoshop in high school IT lessons. I remember our teacher actually spent 2 weeks teaching us how to use Photoshop. So it's a tool I'm very familiar with. And, you know, humans are creatures of habit. So sometimes I do like defaulting back to Photoshop. Figma, I've been learning how to use Figma over the past year. I've noticed it's really useful for client work, for wireframing, and it has a really user-friendly interface. More user-friendly than Photoshop, I would say. It's easier to grasp Figma than Photoshop. So if you're thinking about learning a new tool, I definitely recommend checking out Figma. And I'm going to be showing you how I created my background in Figma today. So starting with imagery, in my visualizations, I always like to add a bit of imagery. So for this project, I went to unsplash.com and searched for cherry blossom sky. And while scrolling through the results, I found this beautiful visualization by Masaki Komori. And it just looks so beautiful and fresh, and I knew I wanted to incorporate it into my visualization in some way. So I went ahead and rotated the image just to see what it would look like and placed my title text. And I noticed that the text was really difficult to read. The background was just interfering too much. Even when I changed the text color, it was just too busy. So this is what I did. I isolated a part of that image that had a beautiful cherry blossom branch that I really liked. Moved it to the top right corner of my background. Remove the residual blue background for that cherry blossom branch. And added in my own sky gradient by sampling 3 colors on the original image. So that kind of kept that feel. And I also changed the text color to white. I know the black was more readable, but the way I wanted to take this is I wanted it to feel like you're looking up in the sky. It's a beautiful spring day, and you're just admiring the cherry blossoms. So that's why I opted for white, just to fit the theme of the biz more. And now let me show you how I did this in Figma. Oh, God. We will go back to that. So here I have my Figma design file, and I'm going to take you through all of the steps from starting with the original image to getting our beautiful background. And I promise you it's very easy. So first thing I'm going to do is copy this original image. And the second step was to rotate it. Next, I'm going to crop the image to isolate the branch. So to crop the image, you can hold down the Control key And I'm gonna just, I think I want that bit. That looks about right. So I've cropped the image and I'm gonna make it slightly bigger. So here you can see that's where the vector aspect of Figma is really good for resizing. Yeah, we're happy with that. Great, so I've got my cherry blossom. Next thing I'm gonna do is color over the unwanted area using the pen tool. So if I went straight to the removing background, I'd probably have this branch in the way, and I don't want this branch to show up when I remove the background. So we're gonna do a little trick. And basically I'm gonna select my pen tool and just draw around that branch. It doesn't have to be perfect, you can go outside the image. But basically draw around that branch, and then once we're happy, remove the stroke, add a fill color, and make it the same color as the blue background. Great. Now, the next step is usually, or the next thing I would do is I would group this selection, and I'd actually export this image out and bring it back in. And the reason behind this is if we just flatten the image, it ruins it. So the way around it is once you've grouped it, I can go into my panel. Ideally, okay, so you can see right here it says group 3. If I change the name for this and write it mid-step and export it, so I'll save it in that folder and bring it back in by going to File, Place Image, and let's bring that back in. So that's a separate file. We don't need this one again or anymore. And now I can use a plugin called Remove BG. So for this plugin, you will have to sign up for a free account. But once you've kind of linked it to Figma, it should be really easy and straightforward to use. So all I'm going to do is right click, head to plugins, and you can see in my recents I have used Remove BG, and I can just click run. And this should hopefully remove the background. There we go. So now we've removed the background. We're almost there. Next thing we want to do is create the sky background gradient. So whenever I'm using Figma, I still like to try and use the original dashboard dimensions. So all I did is select a rectangle shape, click anywhere on my canvas, and then in the right-hand pane, you can see we have width and height settings. So I can change that to 1,400 pixels by 900 pixels, same size as my dashboard. And then I can add a gradient. So in fill, I can click on that. And then the second option across lets you add a gradient. And since I want 3 colors, I can increase that to 3. I want my gradient to go horizontally. So I can just move that manually myself. And then here I sampled 3 images from the original image, 3 colors from the original image. But I'm just going to use the colors here for now. But it would be the same process. One color, sample a second color. It's really handy that Figma has this kind of color picker tool. Great, so I've created my sky background. And then all I need to do for this step is combine these together. So if I bring my cherry blossom branch to the front, place it in the corner, reduce the size slightly. If we need to, we can crop this further. Let's crop it slightly more. So maybe something like that. And then once you're happy with your background image, you can select all of it, group selection. So here I've got my group 3. I'm going to name this Cherry BG. And now I can export this out. And just to show you that works, now we have our background. So this is all ready to use in Tableau. Next, let's look at how I created the chart. Once again, I love incorporating imagery into my visualizations where possible, and there are two ways that you can do this. One is by using actual physical images, similar to what we did with the background. And the second way is that you can actually transform your charts into imagery and kind of embed that imagery directly into the chart. So that's what I wanted to do with the scatter plot. So what I did is I went to flaticon.com and found this beautiful secure icon by FreePick. And I isolated one of those flowers, and the colors I chose for this icon were picked directly from the cherry blossom branches themselves to kind of create a more cohesive look. So starting with a simple scatter plot, if we apply these icons to each of the marks, that should add more imagery, right? So it does add more imagery, but it doesn't look very natural, does it? It's not as visually pleasing as I hoped. But why is this the case? Well, that's because nature is random. And that brings me on to my favorite function to use in Tableau, especially for creative visualizations. So I've used the random function in my Milan Widow drinking fountains viz and my Say It with Roses viz. So in my drinking fountains viz, I used it to kind of create a random placement of water droplets. So this almost looks like the water's trickling down because water doesn't fall at the exact same point each time. So it's almost like a snapshot. And for my Say It With Roses viz, I used it to randomly assign which roses are red and which are pink. So going back to this cherry blossom viz, when I say nature is random, I mean that no two flowers are exactly the same. You'll always find variations in colouring, the orientation and how they grow, and their stage of growth. For example, you can get some baby flowers and you can get some full-grown adult flowers. So I decided to apply random to this. Starting by which one is it? I started by creating different icons. So here you can see the same icon, just in different colorings and shades. And once again, for all of the icons, I picked colors directly from the cherry blossom branch. And then I also played around with the orientation by rotating them slightly. So if we apply this to our scatter plot, it looks something like this. So I randomly assign these shapes to each point. And doesn't that look so much more natural? And now if I apply randomness to the size, that just makes it look more natural, more visually appealing, and more realistic. And since random is my favorite function, I also want to show you how you do these steps in Tableau, because what's life without a little randomness? Okay, that did not work as expected. Okay, so here I have my original scatter plot. Let's apply some randomness into this and make it look more realistic. So the first thing I'd want to do is just see how it looked like with one type of blossom shape like we did initially. So if I change my mark type to shape, click on shape and head to more shapes, I can find the folder where I saved my cherry blossoms. Oh. And I can apply that's all around. And I can increase the chart size. So that doesn't look very natural at this point. Let's add some randomness. So I'm going to type in random and place this random field on the shape card. Looks crazy right now, but essentially what Tableau's done is assign a random shape to each of the points. So this means I can go back into shapes. Oh, God. Oh, it doesn't want to show, does it? let's try this again. Nope. Okay, for some reason it doesn't want to do the demo, which Tableau loves being like this sometimes. I'll try one more time. If not, we'll just go back to the slides. Yeah. Essentially, you can add randomness to the shapes and kind of add more icons. And the second thing you can do is add a second random field and place it onto size, and then increase the size. So automatically that kind of adds a more scattered kind of branchy cherry blossom effect, which is exactly what we wanted. So that's how you do those in Tableau. But yeah, I love the random function. Next, I added a trend line. So trend lines, in my opinion, help to tell a story in most cases. And in this case, it also allowed us to add a bit more imagery to our chart. So it almost mimics like a tree branch. But also it helps us tell the story of the blossoms. So it helps highlight the dip of earlier blossoming trees in recent years. So you can really see that trend line decrease. And to add a sense of gentle urgency, I added a reference band at the end of the scatter plots. So this is really useful as it helps draw the viewer's eye to the earlier blossoming trees. And when I tie it together, I also made sure to kind of add that same color behind the blossoming earlier. So as soon as you see that viz, you notice that color and you notice the color at the end are the same. So instantly you know that that reference band is highlighting the trees that are blossoming earlier. I kept the text minimal. This allows the charts to speak for itself. And since it is such a statement chart, it's best to pair it with something minimal. I added a key and legend so people know what the flowers mean. And I made sure to format the tooltips, add titles, all of that jazz. And that's how we got to the final viz. So if you'd like to create your own Blossom Viz, this was our challenge for week 2 of 2024 for Back to Viz Basics. Focused on building a scatter plot. You can download the data via data.world, and you can access all of our challenges by heading to the tableaustudentguide.com. And I definitely think it's a beautiful addition to your portfolio. So if you do create one, please do tag me because I'd love to see what you create. And finally, I wanted to end with a tiny bit of motivation. So here it says, even the tallest trees start as tiny seeds. And I kind of want to show you a visualization that's been in my hidden folder. So, recognize this chart. I actually came up with this idea 9th of January 2023, so 4 months into learning Tableau. And the idea was that I would rank me and my friends' top 10 favorite Disney films. However, if I hover over the chart, you'll notice you can't really interact with it. And that's because it's just an image. I didn't actually know how to build this or how to add in that interactivity. So currently this does nothing. It's just a plain image. And it wasn't until December 2023. So basically like 11 months after I came up with the idea and more months of learning, practice, that I finally developed the skills to bring this idea to life. So here in my Walt Disney movies, you can see I actually use this chart. And if you hover over, you can interact with it. And this even went on to win Viz of the Day. So what I really wanted to highlight here is that everyone starts somewhere, and with some time, dedication, practice, you can really grow your skills and create amazing things. So don't give up on your journey just because you don't feel like you compare to everyone else yet. Everyone has growth to do. And when you do it, you can do amazing things. So with that, I wanted to say
Thank you so much for listening. I know I was slightly nervous while talking, so thank you for being so patient.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you for such an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
It was
Yeah.
great. You would, if you see the chat, it has lit up. I would love you to go through the things, but I do have a couple of Q&A questions that I do want to quickly get through so that we can make way for Ant to do his presentation. So one of the first questions you got was, do you have any strategy or discipline for your huge growth in Tableau?
Oh, that's a great question. So I don't know if this is like the right thing to say, but I am definitely very introverted. I do love spending a lot of time by myself playing games. Obviously, it's good to balance that with social life. So at the end of the day, you need to recharge somehow. And I kind of noticed that Tableau became just like another creative hobby for me. So alongside jewelry making and like playing music, all that stuff, it just became a way for me to kind of like release that stress. So I think as long as you're doing something you love, that's always really useful. Hence, you'll see a lot of creative visualizations on my profile. And I would say, even if you're able to practice just like 1 hour a day, listening to music and bopping, that's all fine. Because the more you practice, the better you get. So just try and make it fun for yourself, basically.
Cool, totally get it. So Charlotte had a quick question. Did you pay for the images or can you get them for free?
Flash, they are all royalty free, so you can just download them and use them in your visualizations. They have, I believe it's Creative Commons license, so they're free to use. I think it's just nice to add like a little reference to where you got it, like I said earlier, just to credit their work, but they should be completely free to use.
I think Charlotte had like, is there a Figma community similar to what we have Tableau? Because we were also impressed with the quick clicks that you had and you were able to transform an image to a background. Are you part of any Figma community or do you have any idea about it?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the data fan's actually a pretty good place if you want to develop your Figma skills. I think a lot of data visualization creators actually use Figma in their own work or for wireframing purposes. So I think you're probably in the best place to learn Figma.
Yeah, cool. Last two questions. Faith was wondering if you are exporting and re-importing image affects the quality. Is it compressed in the process?
So I would say it depends on the file format you use. I tend to export as a PNG, but a better option if you don't want to lose any quality would be SVG. So ideally, if you're exporting images, try not to do JPEG, just because you will lose some image quality. PNGs and SVGs are generally fine.
Cool. And one final question, since you use the random function and you use the sizing to encode your flowers, right? How do you make sure that people see that it's an artistic decision rather than it's just an artistic decision rather than it meaning something?
I feel like that's the kind of trade-off you have to make with creative visualizations. Obviously, some people might interpret it the wrong way, but I feel like that's just part of creativity. I feel like people, like how they say creativity is subjective or art is subjective. Everyone can kind of create their own interpretations. If you wanted something a bit more that couldn't be interpreted the wrong way, maybe you should look at different ways to kind of add that creativity that won't send mixed messages.
No, cool. So that was all. Again, thank you, Shreya, for joining us. It was such a great session. We totally enjoyed your work through. I do see you have your slide up with the ways to connect. So I'll let you close this up and hand it over to Eric to do a quick swag run for all the participants who have joined us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If
Thanks so
you'll
much for having me again. One quick thing I want to say is I will be uploading a copy of these slides to my website over the next few days. So I'll post on LinkedIn once that's done. But otherwise, I hope you will have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you. If you'll stop sharing, I'll jump in and do the swag drawing. Here we go. All right, let's do the wheel of names. We've got everybody loaded who's attended. If you win, please send an email to tableau.public.tug@gmail.com, and we will send you a $50 gift certificate. So Gracelyn, Roman, thank you for attending today, and I'll look for that email so that we can get your gift certificate on the way. All right, now over to Peryanka and Ant.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Shreya, for that wonderful presentation. So next we have Ant Pulley, and if you have joined us before, you would know that Ant is also a co-lead at Tableau Public User Group. So today he is the speaker and I'll be hosting him. So it's going to be fun. So before I hand over to Ant, I'll just introduce him quickly to our audience. So Ant is a reporting and visualization manager at Lloyd's Banking Group. So another person who is from Lloyd over here. And he's based out in UK. He's been using Tableau for over 7 years, both for work and also Tableau Public and his amazing visualizations. He is a current Tableau Public ambassador and a 3-time winner of I didn't know we can do that in Tableau. So you can see how he has built all those visualizations. And he also has 5 Viz of the days. And some of those Viz are my personal favorites as well. So I'm very excited about seeing how Ant has built his interesting Viz that he's going to show us. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Ant.
Thank you very much. Right, let me share the screen. It's nice to be on the other side of this call. So hopefully this is all going to work. Cool. You can see that all right?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me. My name is obviously Ant. I've just realized the date's wrong. That's a good start, isn't it? It's not the 8th of August. I haven't taken you back in time, so please ignore that. Yeah, so Franca, thank you very much for the intro. You pretty much covered everything that I have on my normal intro slide. I think the probably only other thing I would add is I recently joined the Games Night Viz team. So that's a community project who deals with a bit like Make Every Monday, but for games focused Vizzies. And as you may have seen in the background, I've got a few different Vizzies, which is all good fun. Yep, so I'm in the UK. I live in Hertfordshire, a place called Letchworth. That's me and my lovely family, all girls. So that's my wife and my two young daughters. As well as Vizzing, so I do play the saxophone. I'm a musician. I've lots of things in common with Shreya. She's a musician as well, works at Lloyd's. Don't know if she's a black belt in Taekwondo though. We'll have to check that out. And I've recently been taking up tennis as well. And there's all my bottoms. So I have an X account. I'm on LinkedIn and I've got a blog as well called Consultant. So come and Alexa's talking to me. That's really not helpful. Right. So Tableau can do that. The Vizzie I won this year, and actually I've won it 2 years previously, was called the Tableau Can Do That Award, or sometimes referred to as the WTF I Never Knew Tableau Could Do That Award. Changes depending on sort of where you're presenting it, I think. This is the picture of the result from 22, so the first time I won it, which was a super big surprise, I'll be honest, at the time. Actually, every year was. And a little close up of what you just saw behind me. There are the 3 Vizzies, along with the Vizzie from this tug, which we also won at the Tableau conference this year. And what is the Tableau Can Do That Vizzie? Well, it's basically presented to someone who does things in Tableau that you think, I don't know how they did that, or that you think is particularly unusual, doing things quite differently. And I wanted to start this off by sort of walking through why me, or why I think it's happened to me sort of 3 times in a row, because that's incredibly lucky in my book anyway. And I'll take it back to sort of the very first Viz I did. So I've been sort of in the data fam since about 2020, but I dabbled a little bit on public before that. When I was sort of looking for my job at Lloyd's, I was basically doing lots of upskilling. And one of the very first Vizzes I did on Tableau Public was a music related Viz, and it was this. So this was back in 2019. it's basically a viz about the circle of fifths. It's something about music. It's about looking at the interactions between different key signatures. And bearing in mind, this was before parameter actions, before dynamic zone visibility, you can maybe see where my mind is. I wanted to try and do different things so that it's all done in a worksheet. It's using loads of filter actions, lots of parameters and fun. So that's gives you an idea of where my mind is with Tableau Public, what I'm trying to do. And when I started in the data fam, I obviously did Makeover Monday. That was the first thing I sort of joined in. And one of the very first visits I did, which again I really got my teeth into, was this one, the Nintendo Switch one, which was a 2020 week 45 Makeover Monday. And I really went to town on parameter actions, things popping up. I wanted every button to do something. I wanted to use all the sort of new functionality that's there. So that sort of set the scene of where my profile was going. And it wasn't that long later, I probably made my most famous viz, potentially, which is the Mario viz, which a colleague challenged me a few years ago to basically build a viz for Mario Day. And if you don't know what Mario Day is, it's on March the 10th. And I'll leave that with you just to see if you can work that out. But basically, I decided Mario, that's a creative game, that's fun. What can I do in Tableau? Let's make a game. So that's what I did. I built sort of one of those retro slide puzzle type games in Tableau, made it really gamified. You got a score, you had to try and beat other people's score. It got very passive aggressive with you when you didn't do very well. So really, really fun, loads of different techniques, bit of animation, bit of everything. And I've tried lots of different things. I like playing around with pages, seeing what I can do with page shelf. This particular viz also uses map layers and polygons, so lots of different things all combined together. My relaxing octopus has made a few appearances in Vizzies, again using pages to sort of animate between a couple of states just to get a really smooth, hopefully relaxing sort of effect. Just really silly stuff, some of this, but I'm trying to see what happens with Tableau when I do it. And I've been doing it quite consistently. So I think it was last year I hit 100 Vizzies. I'm at 134 now, most of them with some sort of ridiculous idea or technique in it. And I built a viz to celebrate my 100 Vizzies with a technique I use quite a lot, which is sort of just using one parameter to drive what's happening. So you just click a button, it changes the parameter, something happens on screen. And that's something I do quite a lot and something I have used in business as well. And then I do things which are just very silly, trying different things. This looks quite simple. You click a button to flip some pancakes. But there's some technical things in there, like how do you stop the pancakes appearing before you hit the middle of the screen? And I'm doing things like using white bar charts underneath to hide the pancakes before they appear above the pans. So it's lots of sort of trickery and fun and games behind the Vizzies. And I think I've made some quite memorable ones as well. So I think this is perhaps the combination of the things I'm doing and the sort of memorableness of the Vizzies, perhaps why I'm being picked for this award quite so often, because I'm making sort of stuff that sticks in people's mind, like Mr. Tickle's got very long arms, or the lightsabers. So very simple viz, you just turn on and off lightsabers and it's good. It's all good fun. But then I thought, why me this time? So in my mind, I hadn't been as prolific last year in terms of building Vizzies and doing different things. I was sort of not really expecting to get it this time. So I was thinking, why was I doing it? So I sort of looked through what I was doing, and I'm still producing Vizzies. I'm still doing those sort of fun things. And this came out last December. I did a sing-along viz. Is that some music? I was gone. I don't know if you're doing that in time to my music viz. That's quite good. No, I did a sing-along viz for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, because why not? I wanted to try out page syncing just to see how that worked. I did a Data Plus Movies viz where I played around with dynamic zone visibility, looking at dynamic axis ranges, so playing around. So I was doing things, but I think why this year? I think there was probably a viz that did it for me, and it was the timing of it more than anything, because I did this viz, and not long after it got a viz of the day, all within the time frame for the Vizzie nominations, and that was my consult ant on ants viz. I can't even say it. It's that good. So this one, it got viz of the day, yeah, at some point before the conference. I can't remember the exact time. And this is the one I'm going to take you through a bit more in detail now, because it uses a few techniques that I use quite often. But I think this is probably the one that appeared at the right time to help me with that third win. Again, very silly, but got a bit of insight into this one, because you do get some information about ants, which is all good. So why Why did I choose this viz? Well, why consult ant on ants? Well, I've got a long list of stuff I want to try. This is an excerpt from my OneNote of all the things that come into my head that I write down, that I say, I want to try that, I want to try that chart, I've got this idea. And it's just a long list that occasionally I check off, occasionally something clicks in my head. And it was about a year ago, I was at the London Tug presenting, and I just gave example of 5 of the things on my list, just to sort of show people the kind of things I was thinking of. And this was the 5. So Bluey, which I am doing a collab on with Jessica Moon at the moment. It's going very, very slowly, but we'll get there eventually. Palindromes, Are We There Yet? Monty Python, and then there's one at the bottom, consult ant on ants. And I think in the session it was CJ Mays who sort of piped up and said, "Oh, let's have a vote. Let's decide what one you should do next." And perhaps unsurprisingly, this bottom one came out. And just in case you're not aware, the reason I went consult ant on ants is because obviously I'm called Ant. My Twitter handle, X handle is consult ant, and so it just felt very amusing to call it that. So this came up at the London Tug, so I said, all right, I'll give it a go, but it didn't really go anywhere for a while. I'd done a sketch which looked like this, which you'll agree is nothing like what I just showed you. It was me initially thinking about what can I do with like an ant hill or an ant home to do something around asking questions about Vizzies, but I just wasn't bought into that. It didn't really work for me. So it was quite a while later when I was looking through my list again, I saw another idea on the list, and it was just called magnifying glass. That's all I'd written down. That was the idea. And I think where it came from was I wanted some sort of cool, it was a business idea really, some sort of cool way of zooming in on elements of a scatter chart using a magnifying glass, something along those lines. And I thought, actually, I can use that. You use a magnifying glass to look at ants. Why not use that in a viz? And that's when I came across this idea of doing it. And I think my initial plan was, rather than it being linear like you saw on the previous viz, was actually, can I do it almost like you're looking down on a bit of grass and you can see some ants and you want to move the magnifying glass to the ant. That's what I sort of originally wanted to do. That ended up being a little too troublesome, I think, for the amount of time I was willing to put into it. So I ended up simplifying that to some degree, simplifying inverted commas to build this view. The added bonus being I've got more space at the bottom to actually put some insight and some background data into it. So before I jump into Tableau, I'm just going to briefly touch on the images I've used. So I used Midjourney, which is an AI image generator, to create my ants and also you would have all seen it, I've not mentioned it, the picture of me, the cartoon picture of me. So the ants themselves, in Midjourney, you use a term called /imagine, and then you give it a prompt and it will come out with some sort of image. I had to mess around a few times to get the prompt right. In Midjourney, you can put these like double minus text there to tell it not to do things. So when I initially said, make me an ant, it would often put a shadow on, or it would put wings on the ant and the things that I didn't want. So I sort of used this to sort of narrow it down and ended up getting the images you see me using, which are essentially all the same ant but different colors. It didn't give me much variation in the types of ant. And also you'll notice, if you're eagle-eyed, that they're a bit dodged. They've all got 3 antennae. Some of them don't have 6 legs. So it's not, you'd have thought AI could manage the right number of legs for an ant, but maybe not. And in terms of the drawing of me, so again, you can use Midjourney. You can upload an image to Midjourney and say, right, do some sort of cartoon version of me, which I tried. This is the final prompt I got. The first, I used this image, which probably wasn't ideal because it's got quite a lot of background, but it took a while to get to this prompt because I had some rather unusual results. So the first go I had, this is what I got, which I was sort of laughing at myself about. Very interesting. I kept sort of trying to whittle it down. This was my second one. The bottom 2 aren't too bad. The top 2 are slightly scary. So it was very much trying to whittle this down to get something good. And finally, it produced this, which I thought, okay, that's not bad. That's sort of a nice sort of representation of me. I obviously had stubble in the picture. That's probably quite likely. So what I did is I stuck that into Figma. A bit like Shreya just demonstrated, I used the remove the background tool to get rid of the red background and essentially exported it as a PNG, which looks like this. And what you will notice is it's quite low quality. There's a reason behind that, and that's because animations in Tableau can be finicky, if that's the right word. They don't behave particularly well if you've got a very complex viz, or if you're using lots of images or lots of large images. So I played around quite a lot with the size of my image to get an image that was small enough that the animations would work. So that's all for the actual images. So now I'm going to jump into Tableau. Oh, in fact, what I should have done first was show you the data that I used, which is incredibly simple. So this is the data set it's all based off. It's just 6 points, one ID for each ant. There are 6 ants, including me, consult ant. There's some coordinates, of which actually only the Y coordinate I use because they're all on the same level. It's got the name of the ant. It's got a minimum and maximum size of the ant in millimeters. Obviously, I'm a lot bigger than millimeters. And then it's got the colony size. So I got all these from an ant-based website. So that's the data set, really simple. And this is the viz. And a couple of things to point out here. When I open this viz up, it's not in the default position. So when I'm on Tableau Public, if I go to here, this is what the viz looks like when you open it on Tableau Public. So it's got nothing below in it. It's got the magnifying glass, it's got 3 ants either side, and it's got the find an ant option there. In my desktop, this is how it looks because I'm playing around with it. I'm changing stuff around. But what you'll see on the right here is I've got the 3 parameters that drive my whole viz, and I've got a little note to myself of what they need to be when I publish it, so that I don't accidentally publish it in the wrong position. I don't know if you know this tip, but you can move stuff off the canvas, and it's really helpful. And you can do that by you can't just drag it out because it would disappear because it's not supposed to be there. But if you drag the right-hand side out and then drag the left-hand side out, you can move something completely off the canvas so that when you publish it onto Tableau Public Server or whatever, it won't show, but it means it stays on the page for you to use as and when you want it. So my published defaults are 0 because I want my 0 position, and I've got 3.4 and I've got 3.6, which I'll explain in a bit. So that's the default position. That's what it should look like. And when you click on it, stuff should animate. He said should animate, and this is deliberate. You'll see it's half animating, which is slightly strange. And again, this is due to this Tableau animation being a little bit finicky. So you can see the background ones are animating, the top one isn't for some reason. However, I ran into them quite early when I was developing, but what I found is that when I published it on Tableau Public, it was fine. So obviously, the way the Tableau algorithm works or decides whether it's going to animate, it didn't want to do it on my desktop environment, but it was quite happy to do it on Tableau Public, as you can see there. So just pointing that out, if you ever do animations in Tableau, that sometimes this can happen. But that sort of explains what's going on there. So what I want to do now is just briefly explain how I've built this up, because it's done via lots of layers. There's a lot of trickery involved in getting the animations appearing to work the way they do. And I've got a little view of what that looks like. There's essentially six layers that make the viz. You've got small ants worksheet, which looks like this. So what that is the actual pictures of the small ants that animate. So it runs off this ant ID parameter, which you can change and you can see them moving. It's very simple. I've got my Y coordinate, which is always 1, and I've got an updating X coordinate, which when I go into update X, you can see it looks a bit long. It's just, the answer is it's just manual. All I'm doing is saying whenever my parameter is 0, 1, 2, 3, this is what I want my X coordinate to be for that particular ant, because I wanted them to all appear like they were sort of shifting over a bit as you move the magnifying glass. So that's a very simple sheet, but that's the animated small ants layer. The next one is called blank green square, which is super exciting. So if I go to layout, so you'll see small ants, and then we've got blank green square. And all blank green square is a blank green square with the same color as the background. The reason it's there is because if you don't have it there, if I click, for example, that ant, you can see it in the background. Because the sheet is happening underneath the big ant sheet and the magnifying glass, you can see those ants moving in the background, and I don't want to. I want them to disappear under the magnifying glass. So let me put that back to where it was, and it hides them. So it's trickery. I'm just sort of hiding stuff as we go along. The next sheet, big ants worksheet. So as you probably expect, that's where the big ants are. For this one, I've done it slightly differently. I'm using dynamic axis ranges to move the axis. So if I show my axis, I can show you what's going on. I don't know why I did that. And I click down here. You'll see that under custom in your range, as well as automatic, independent, etc., you can choose a parameter to set your minimum and maximum axis range, which is really quite handy. And then essentially what I'm doing is based on my, again, same ant ID parameter, I'm updating the axis range every time I click an ant. So what's happening if I can find it. Yeah, so whenever I click an ant, that axis range essentially shifts and moves to the next ant along. The next one is the find an ant image. Now this image is done using dynamic zone visibility, because I only want it to appear when it's in state 0. So when I don't have any ants underneath the magnifying glass. So if I change my parameter to 0, you'll see find an ant appears there. I've broken my axis somewhat, so let me just reset that. It appears in the middle. And if I find it down here, it's set to control using a parameter, a true false calculation based off that parameter. It basically says if my parameter equals 0, show this image. If not, don't show it. That's basically what it's saying. Cool. And the next one is magnifying glass image. So I've got my find text, which I wanted to sit under the magnifying glass because I want it to feel like you were sort of looking at the text under the magnifying glass. Now that I made in Figma. So we seem to be mentioning Figma a few times. Mine is far less organized than Shreya's. It's just chaos. I just put stuff on a page and see what happens. But this is the image I've used as the magnifying glass. And you'll see it's also got a sort of green, it's transparent in the middle. It's got slightly sort of phased transparent background, but it's also got a green square around it. And that green square is for a similar reason for those small ants that I was hiding earlier. The difference being it's hiding, let me get back to here. It's hiding this big ant as it transitions out, because when this big ant moves left, for example, there's a little bit of space here where if you didn't have that green square, you'd see a bit of the icon moving past. So again, it's a bit of trickery just to sort of stop something being shown as it goes through. And then my final layer is the important one, really. This is the one that drives all the parameter changes, and that's called transparent small ants worksheet. Of course, how many times do you call a worksheet a transparent small ants worksheet in Tableau? Chances are never. Basically, this is an complete replica of the small ants worksheet, but it's all transparent. The reason being, I want this to sit on top of everything else, so that it's the thing you can interact with, but it sits exactly over where the position of the actual ants are on the lowest sheet. And it's exactly the same, but the difference is I have all my update parameter calculations that are in here. So I showed you the ant one earlier. I've also got the X max update, which would update the maximum range of my axis, and the minimum one's very similar. So it's all driven through that parameter. And that's everything, I think, for that top section. The bottom section is actually very simple. It's all driven by this parameter, and it's all driven by, again, dynamic zone visibility. And the way it works is I've got my overall container, which will turn off or on if it's a 0 or if it's one of the other ants. And then these two bits here are actually images, because I wanted to keep the font the same, and the font wasn't in Tableau. So I've actually created 6 images of that and 6 images of that, one for each ant type. And these are all controlled by a different true false statement. So it will be like, if the parameter equals 2, then show it. If not, don't show it. And then these two are just simply scatter plots. I may have even used the random function. Look at that. It's like we're synced. I've used the random function to spread out my dots because there's not that many, and I want them to be visible. The only thing I did slightly differently, because, and this is a business tip, I suppose, believe it or not, because I'm a massive outlier in terms of ants, because I'm much taller, I didn't want all of these to be lumped up at one end of the axis unless I was shown. So I've just put a little filter on there that when consult ant is selected, then the axis updates to include me. Otherwise, you just end them all up at the left. You can't see any variation. So there, you get a business tip out of all this after all that. So that's essentially what's going on. The only other thing I put on was a show height container, not really attributing, but saying how I got to the images. So I use Midjourney. This is the prompt I use. So I think if you're using something like Midjourney, which I've mentioned down here, it's always worth putting in the prompt you use, because people will be interested to see how you got to where you got to, because they can be a bit tricky to get things the right way. And I think that's going to be pretty much what I wanted to talk about. There we go. Any questions?
Yeah, I think I have a few questions. I don't know if anyone has. Let me check. Okay, I'll go with mine. If anyone wants to post, please go ahead and post on the Q&A. Firstly, Midjourney, I haven't used that personally. Is that a free application, or do we have to pay up for that?
I'm not sure it's got any free element anymore, because I've just cancelled a subscription to it. But to be honest, I think there's a load of other free ones that are just as good, if not better now. It used to be free. I'm not sure if there's any free element at the moment.
Okay. And I love that you have used most of the cool features that came up in the last year. You have used show height containers, dynamic zone visibility, dynamic axis. That's a lot of features that you have covered here.
Yeah.
I think, okay, one question I just see here. 1 second. Okay, I think Preeti wants to know, how can we get a collab project with you? I think we need to join the line.
My time is the problem at the moment. I've been trying to do this one with Jessica for ages, and then she got into Iron Viz final, and then it's time more than anything. I think the problem is not the problem with my public visits. I mean, you've got to want to do it. You've got to love the stuff you're doing on Tableau Public if you want to do it. And you also have to have an idea, and that often comes in fits and starts with me. And if I've got an idea, I'll do it really quickly, and it's done the next day, kind of thing. Whereas a collab requires a lot more syncing up. So yeah. I think it will get done. Don't get me wrong, but it's tricky to get that working. I can see.
Glenn, whenever you have the next opening, please do sign us up, because I want to see how your brain works, because this was such a fun session.
Absolutely.
I've seen Eric's just asked. Yeah.
Yeah,
why random?
Yeah, random doesn't show on a function, on the functions that Tableau shows. I think it's like a secret function.
Well, I think it might. There's a few functions like it, but I think maybe it's because it's not compatible with there's a lot of data sets it doesn't work with. So obviously I'm just using it with Excel and it's fine, but I think it might be something along those lines. It doesn't play well with enough data sets to be included. Is my, don't hold me to that, but I think that might be one of the reasons.
Okay. I have one last question out of curiosity. What is your next idea, or do you have a set of ideas that we can vote on, like you did past?
Oh, I've got a lot of ideas. I've got one in the making on Final Fantasy VII computer game, which has been in the making for a long time, but it's going to be really cool when I actually finish it. I've got another one I'm trying to transfer from work, which is not as easy as it sounds because we're not allowed to email stuff out of work. So I want to just rebuild something that I've done in work using different data around hex maps. But lots of ideas. Usually I have the big ideas and I don't touch them because lots of other ideas appear in the meantime. That tends to be what happens.
Yeah, problem with too many ideas.
Yeah. Not enough data.
Yeah. All right. I think I think we're pretty good at this. I don't see any more questions coming up. Yeah, Eric, Preeti, anything to add as we wrap this up?
Just a few more slides to go. So let me share my screen again. And next month, we have some very popular Visit of the Days. We're going to have Priya Padam and Luis Yu share their Superstore dashboard, which has a bazillion views and 10 Tableau hacks, which again has thousands and thousands of views. So come help see how they did it. And we're also going to have the Data Plus TV team to talk about the launch of the Data Plus TV promotion. So good stuff. And finally, oh, that's not it. Sorry, got them out of order here. If you want your own Viz today, build a Viz that is timely and topical, highlights new features, spotlights a diverse Tableau community, includes a novel chart type or Tableau trick, and communicates a key insider story. And as we've seen today, make it visually stunning. If you can do all that, hopefully we will have you on a future version of the Tableau Public Tug. Thank you all for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye all. Thank you.